Hey, in this video, we break down why watching live unscripted coaching demos is so critical for you to become a mastery level coach. We give a bunch of different reasons, so watch the whole discussion. In this show, we are going to talk about demos, not the demolition version of demo, but the demonstration version of demo. So one of the things that I've learned over the years, over 18 years in this industry, almost all of it in the coaching world, is what does it actually take for people to get the embodiment and confidence and certainty to be a coach? And we've talked in various videos over the years, and we've put together frameworks and templates and so forth that really attempt to explain what the process is actually like. And the process of being a world-class coach is not the same as learning math in school or learning how to set up a YouTube channel or how to sell things on eBay. It's not just this linear informational journey. And yet I think that's the way most of us are programmed to believe everything is there's an information line and we regurgitate, or we consume the information, we regurgitate the information, and there's a right way to do things and there's a wrong way to do things. And if we do it the right way, then we get the gold star. And if we do it the wrong way, we get the big red F on our paper, right? Or whatever version of that is. So it's critical for you all, if you're watching this and you want to be a coach in whatever capacity, whether that means one-on-one coaching or that means speaking or that means writing books. To me, all of that is coaching. If you're teaching lessons and it's going to help somebody change their life, that's coaching. And specifically, if we're talking about interactive coaching, one-on-one or groups or facilitating in a workshop or whatever, you have to decide whether you want to be an assembly line, informational, transactional coach, or if you want to be a transformational, interactive, truly fundamental kind of coach. Are you wanting to change people's lives at a fundamental level? Are you wanting to give them experiences that they've never had before? Are you wanting to help them remove experiences that they no longer want? Or are you just wanting to give them information so that they take that information and transact with it in some way? Either one of those is fine. You just need to know which one you want to do. Everything we do is the first one. It's in that little analogy or that juxtaposition, which is transformation. If you want to be a transformational coach, you need to be a transformational agent, meaning if you want to produce transformational breakthroughs and experiences for other people, you need to be somebody who produces that. You are the most important ingredient in your recipe. And it's important that that ingredient is unique, but it's also important that that ingredient in you, in your embodiment, in your confidence, in your certainty, you understand the process at a deep, wide level of transformation. What causes humans to change their lives? What causes humans to change their behaviors? What causes humans to break their attachments? What causes humans to break their addictions? What causes humans to elevate their happiness and joy and experience all the things that we all want to experience? And what causes humans to stop suffering? What causes us to break the influence of beliefs that we've had our whole life? What causes us to break the influence of traumas that we have our whole life? What causes us to heal? What causes us to succeed? All of those things are root issues and root topics, meaning if you want to change the fruits of the tree, you've got to change the roots of the tree. What almost everybody is doing is just trying to paint the fruits. What almost everybody is doing is trying to change the surface level circumstances. And at best, that's a temporary change. So if you want to be the kind of person that really wants to change the foundation of human behavior with yourself first, And while you're helping other people, it's all possible, but you have to sign up for mastery level learning. If you sign up for mastery level learning, you just have to understand that the learning path does not look like the traditional learning path that we, almost all of us, have experienced. The learning path toward mastery is nowhere near the same as the learning path toward regurgitation. Most of us learn and regurgitate. And so that kind of linear learning is primarily driven by recitation, meaning you recite something. Somebody tells you information and you recite it on the test. In the coaching context, somebody brings you an issue, whether it's a marriage challenge or limiting belief or health and nutrition or making money or whatever it is. And the brain that most of us have learned with, programmed the way most of us have been programmed to learn, wants to be able to recite the answer. So most coaches are asking some version of, what's the right thing to do in this situation? What's the right thing to do when it comes to setting up your phone calls? Should you do 30 minutes? Should you do 45 minutes? Should you do an hour? What's the right thing to do when it comes to creating products? Should you sell it for $100, $1,000? Should they have 8 modules? Should you do it all online? What's the right thing to do when somebody says, I'm having challenges with my relationship to my body, right? We're mostly asking, what's the right thing to do when? That's a recitation question. So when this happens, this is what you recite. When this happens, this is what you do. And there's nothing wrong with that kind of learning. It's just that it can only produce what that kind of learning can produce, which is basically follow the directions, follow the instructions, right? What we want you to experience and what we invite you into is the other kind of learning, which is more about recognition. So the distinction I'm making is recitation learning versus recognition learning. If you want to be a leader, if you want to be a master level coach, if you want to be a world-class coach, you need recognition, not recitation. And it's so much easier from a preparation standpoint to get ready to recognize than it is to get ready to recite. Because if you need to be ready to recite, then you need to know what's going to be on the test. You need to know what they are probably going to ask or what they might ask. So now you need to have the universe of all possibilities so that you can be ready to recite your answer to all of those possibilities, rather than do the work to where you can recognize what's happening in any given moment and recognize what to do then in the form of questions or silence or direction or facilitation of any kind or exercises to use. That's about recognition. And if you want the outcomes that are only possible through recognition, but you only follow the learning of recitation, it's not possible. You can't go by this path and get those outcomes. So I just wanted to set the foundation here for this entire discussion, because if you don't make a choice that you want to be in a certain kind of learning environment, in a certain kind of classroom that will produce a certain kind of embodied certainty, then nothing else that we say is going to matter. I'll tell you, stop the video, because you should just go into the recitation classrooms. And there's plenty of those out there, right? Mm-hmm. So if you want recognition, you need to see demonstrations in a totally different way. And we're going to break all that down. But Michelle, what is it that you want to add to anything that I've said or whatever you've been thinking?
Yeah, what I'll just add is that, like, I was that, like, I was the most coaches asking, right? So most of you that are here in the community now, you don't know, like, me at that point in my journey, but that was absolutely how, I mean, that was just how I was trained to learn, right? So it is actually easier to what you were saying, Sean. It is an easier way when you're clear on, like, okay, what's the kind of learning that I'm here for? What's the classroom that I'm in? And for me, it was not comfortable because it was such an unfamiliar way. I had gotten used to, with 40 years of practice, I had gotten used to being a very, very excellent performer. And so I was incredibly good at recitation. And so the process of learning the recognition did not feel comfortable, which is why it is so important that when you're doing that learning, that you're in a classroom that understands that is happening, so that they can support you through that discomfort that is going to be a natural experience for anybody who doesn't have more of that, like, which I think is most people. We're not raised to be entrepreneurial in our mindset. We're not trained to think in recognition. We're taught to memorize tests so that we can get the gold star, the 100% in red, the stickers and the celebration. We're not actually taught how to think. We're taught to memorize and repeat. And so being in a classroom that understands all of these dynamics, right, that understands the process, the pain, and the person, can then turn around and teach those things to its students. And so I just want to like really emphasize that, because from my own experience, like, I came up in this work as a student in the community. So I know this from that seat.
Yeah, the performance is a really important word they use, and that we've all been programmed to perform on some level and in certain environments for certain consequences and outcomes and all that sort of stuff. And that's why we want to know the right answers. That's why we want to know exactly how to do it and what's going to cause people to approve of us in the business sense, what's going to cause people to purchase us, and what's going to cause us to not mess up. And the discomfort is such an important understanding, because if you want comfort, then you can't have mastery.
Ooh.
If you demand comfort, you cannot have mastery, because that's just not the way that the mastery outcome is produced. So before we continue to dive into this, I want to let you know what we're doing. We're doing a demo day, and that is going to be full of a bunch of coaching demos. And again, we're going to break this down here in the rest of this video, like why some of this stuff is really important. But we're going to show you just real live, unscripted, unprepared, unplanned, unperfected coaching from different coaches with different clients. And you need that in your learning. If you want to be a mastery level coach, you need to see a lot of variation. You need to see a lot of different styles in so many different ways. Otherwise, it's just impossible to have the embodied certainty that people are wanting. So you can go to coachshaunsmith.com/demo day 2023. It's on the screen here. And that's the opt-in page. It's from 9 a.m. Pacific time to 12 p.m. So it's just 3 hours, but we're going to do multiple demos. Sometimes we're just going to do demos, just like one-off demonstrations on videos that we'll put out on YouTube and Facebook and so forth. And then sometimes we pack them together in a demo day like this. But be on the lookout for the demonstrations that we share with you guys, because it's a part of the recipe that is required to produce the outcomes that you're all wanting. However, most of us don't know what we need to get where we want to go. Most of us don't know the actual experiences. And so we do a bunch of certifications in our company. We have multiple levels. Some of them are online. You can take it all, in your own, on your own time. And some of them are 5-day immersive experiences, and some of them are year-long experiences. And what constantly happens when people go through all 3 levels, because we always meet with them and, we just want to know, what's your experience been like? What virtually always happens, and I would say that it's the single most common comment that people give, is some version of, now I get it. Now I get why you made us do that. I didn't like it and I didn't understand it, but now I get it, because they are, now I'm getting through embodied experiences. So now they're looking back and going, oh, Now, because I have the certainty that I have, now I understand why that thing was necessary. But it's extremely rare for people to understand going forward what they need to experience. And it's just because mastery level learning is a different game. I mean, it's truly a different game. So we can do everything that we can to sort of get out in front of that, let you know that it might be uncomfortable. We don't know how it's going to be uncomfortable. We can't predict any of your individual experiences. But if you are comfortable in your learning, you're not growing. If you're comfortable in your learning, it's probably not your learning. You might be reciting somebody else's learning or somebody else's knowledge. But if you're comfortable in your learning and it's super enjoyable, you are not evolving as a human because evolution is not comfortable. And yet most of us demand comfort of some kind, right? So we can get out in front of it and let you know that discomfort is a part of evolution. And even if you intellectually understand it, you're still not going to like it. And you still won't know what your individual experience needs to be. We teach this all the time. And still, neither one of us like it. We just know it's part of the process, but we only know it's part of the process because we've gone through it so many times. So we can value the process, but we still don't like it. So having said all of that, I do want you to understand intellectually that seeing a bunch of different variations is so critical to the learning process. If you're trying to go anywhere near, if you're trying to embody confidence and certainty or go anywhere near mastery, variation is required because of that word recognition. You cannot recognize without a lot of variation. There has to be variation for your human brain to start recognizing what you're noticing and what you're observing and what you're seeing. If it's just one thing all the time, then all you can do is just follow the experience that you have. So if you only have one coach, let's just say that you actually have a private coach. And I think most coaches that want to be coaches don't even have a coach, which is its own issue. And we'll talk about that in another video, I'm sure. But let's say you do have a coach, but you've only had one coach. That means you only have one experience.
That's right.
With one perspective. Yeah. And you only have your own client experience on that one road of that one coach that you have. So the more variation you have, the more flexible your impact can be, meaning you can help more and more people because you have different experiences. And part of that is just simply watch different coaches do their work and recognize that there's really a bunch of different right things to do. There isn't a single right thing to do and everything else is wrong. In fact, there's usually all kinds of right things to do and maybe one or two things are wrong, right? And we very rarely put that wrong label on anything. But if there is certain situations where there's something wrong, that's the only option of wrong and everything else is right. If you have the right intentions, if you have the right come from, if you have the right information, if you have the right understanding of all the below the surface stuff, then whatever you decide in the moment, based on the recognition, based on all the immersion that you have, is going to be your version of the right thing to do. Now, if any of this is sounding weird or Greek to you, or like the words don't make sense, or the experience, or you really can't see it, awesome. That's actually a good thing, because what it means is that you're being invited into by us, but also with your own body, you're being invited into something that is not already understood intellectually. And everything you want in your life that you don't currently have will require you to go beyond your current intellectual understanding. And that just makes sense, right? Another way to say it is probably more of a common way to say it. You've probably seen quotes or memes or something that says, all your dreams are beyond your comfort zone, right? But I want you to really start to put that in the terms of intellectual understanding. Your intellect understands everything that you have been through, and your intellect cannot understand anything you've not been through. Your intellect can't understand that. The best thing we can do for you is give your intellect the seed to know that it can't understand it. So at least you can understand that you can't understand.
Right.
And that's truly like as clear as we can possibly get when it comes to a lot of the lessons that you have to learn. So this kind of learning requires variation and it requires repetition, but it requires repetition of variation. It requires repetition of change. It requires you to repeatedly see things that are different. Because if you just see one thing or you just see a couple things that are different, but it's not repetitive, then you're not going to get the lessons. So if you want embodied certainty, which is not only where true confidence comes from, but it's also why people would hire you. If you want embodied certainty, you've got to sign up for the kind of learning that produces it. Embodied certainty can't be delivered to you on a worksheet. It can't be delivered to you in any kind of recitation sort of way or memory sort of way. That's not the way that works. So you've got to put yourself in experiences that produce on the other end embodied certainty. And then people will feel it. People will experience it. People will trust you. People will hear things in your words that they're not hearing in other people's words. And that is how you become unique, but stay authentic at the same time. So if you want that kind of an outcome, you need to experience the process that produces it. And what most people are doing is the opposite of that. They want a certain outcome, but they keep putting themselves into classrooms that can't produce that outcome. And it doesn't matter how much you want to learn about world history. If you're in a math classroom, it doesn't even matter if you're a phenomenal student.
Yeah, they don't teach
the
that.
best you can do is get good at math. If that's the classroom that you're in, you have to be in a classroom that can produce the outcome that you want to produce. And too many of us are following one recipe and expecting and hoping for the results of another recipe. So that's why these demonstrations, specifically in coaching, is so critical for you to see, oh, she asked one question and got here. He asked another question and got here. They asked this different question and it took, it went down this road. This process took 7 minutes. That process took 45 minutes. And it's just all different versions of the right thing to do. But you have to essentially immerse yourself in the ocean of variation. Otherwise, you can't have the embodied level certainty that is required and that all of you are searching for. So I know we got a list here to go through, Michelle. I've probably sort of cycled through a lot of them. If there's anything you want to add to it, please do.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say and this is just emphasizing what I heard and what you were sharing, is that it's variation of like it's variation of everything. It's variations of success. It's variations of within the coach, within the questions, within the client, within the responses. Like it's all of that. And when you said, if you want embodied certainty, listen, y'all let me know in the chats. I didn't not want embodied certainty, but it wasn't what I was searching for. But I wanted clients. I wanted to be able to help people. I wanted to be able to build this business and make this impact. And I want to be really clear that the embodied certainty is the thing that is going to bring all of the things that you want. It's just not the thing that we're used to going after. Most of us are used to going after the right answers. So I just want to emphasize that, because we have to also help our brains make that connection of like, oh, that thing that they're talking about, that's actually going to lead me to the outcome that I want.
Yeah. And you talk a lot about how when you first got into personal development and you were in your direct sales business, like you were looking for a certain thing and you wouldn't have showed up for how to solve your perfectionism, I think is the way you talk about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If you had been offering a class on like how to heal your relationship with perfectionism, I don't know that I would be here today, because it's not that I was against it. I didn't know that the perfectionism was a problem for me.
That's the problem.
So I wasn't looking for a solution. What I wanted was more freedom and success. And so you were offering a program at the time that was a 90-day blitz to freedom that I wanted, right? I didn't understand what, like, the classroom that I needed to be able to achieve the outcomes, right? And so sometimes we have to make those connections with ourselves, of course, with our clients, but we have to help our brain connect these dots, especially when you're hearing something that is like common language in the marketing world out there. I don't hear, I've heard others, but they are few and far between that are speaking about what it truly does actually take, not the fads, but the fundamentals.
Yeah, that piece right there, fads versus fundamentals, is going to, it's going to explain why most people succeed or fail at anything. Fads versus fundamentals. And fads are sexy and they're intriguing and they're sensational and they're exciting, and at best they're temporary. It's fundamentals that are really going to give you any true sustainable success in anything. And then you can add fads on top of that. Fads can be the icing to the cake, but fads can never be the cake. And yet so many people are just going from fad to fad to fad to fad. Virtually all the marketing messages are filled with fads.
Yeah.
Why? Because they work, because that's what people want. I heard something the other day that like shook me. If a human desires the impossible, only a liar will be satisfactory. So let me break that down.
Damn.
If what you want is impossible, the only way you'll ever be satisfied is through somebody lying to you. And so many of our desires are impossible because we're human and that's the way the brain works. And that's why there are so many marketing messages that are intriguing and they work from a financial standpoint in the sense that a lot of people buy them, but they're lies because that's what the people want. And marketers give people what they want more so than what they actually need. Generally speaking, across the board, right? So a lot of the success in terms of what we're talking about is, let me put it a different way. Your success is largely going to be determined by whether you understand this concept that we're talking about here, whether you understand and whether you commit to fundamental life change or just playing fad for, until you need the next one, right? And if you sign up for fundamental life change, and especially those of you that want to be able to change other people's lives fundamentally, you just have to understand that requires a certain kind of classroom, and it will require a certain kind of experience for you, and that will produce a certain kind of outcome that none of the other classrooms can produce. And it's actually much faster. It's a much faster way of learning. But on the front side, it looks like it's the long way. It takes you looking back going, I've been eating ice cream, or I've been eating icing for 5 years now, and I don't feel full, right? Because you haven't had any cake. It takes us to look back and go, wow, I've been chasing these fads. I've been going down the shortcut route. I've been trying to do everything really fast for a long time. And then you can compare to other people or maybe different areas of your life that you've, really been fundamental with. And you realize maybe it felt like I was going slow, but 2 years later, I made 10 years worth of progress. Whereas for most people, 10 years later, they've made 2 weeks worth of progress backwards. They've made 2 weeks worth of regress, really, right? It's just the way that we learn, you guys. And this isn't to try to throw anybody under the bus or be demeaning or any of that sort of stuff. It's just, if you're in it for a certain outcome, you have to follow the recipe that can produce that outcome. And if you don't follow the recipe that can produce the outcome, you'll never get the outcome. Now, if you don't want that outcome, great, no problem. No problem. But if you do want the outcome where you can fundamentally change your life and learn how to fundamentally change other people's lives, then you've got to be inside that classroom. And one of the elements of that in the coaching world is to see a lot of demos.
At least there wasn't an adjective.
What is that? Are you scarecrowing right now?
I'm ready. My position is different because I'm not with my desktop and I just have my hands on my knees, but I need to get a stand because I'm lower than I usually am.
No, that was hella comfortable. You just went.
I'm ready. The one person that was here just left.
Oh, perfect. Nice. Just join on your phone so it looks like somebody's watching.
You're right. Let me open up another tab.
All right, cool. Well, if you like this video and you understand all those concepts and you want to watch a live unscripted coaching demo, check out that video right there. It's all about money beliefs.
Just got to do the math, and maybe I like to check other people's, like how they do their pricing, to get kind of idea how to do mine. So maybe look at their pricing as far